From the bolt-action Springfield to the revolutionary M1 Garand, this is every rifle the United States Army carried into combat during World War II. When the United States entered World War II in December 1941, its soldiers carried a mix of proven veterans and radical new designs. The U.S. Army fought across 6 continents, from frozen Aleutian Islands to North African deserts, from Italian mountains to Pacific jungles. American industry produced over 12 million rifles and carbines between 1941 and 1945. These weapons shaped every major campaign: Kasserine Pass, Normandy, the Hurtgen Forest, Leyte Gulf. No other nation fielded as many distinct rifle variants in a single war. Here is every rifle the U.S. Army carried, from bolt-action holdovers to the weapons that changed infantry combat forever. These were the rifles America went to war with, designs rooted in an earlier era, still deadly, and still trusted by millions of soldiers. M1903 Springfield, adopted in 1903 Springfield, adopted in 1903 and chambered in .006, entered World War II as America's primary service rifle. Already 4 decades old, its bolt-action mechanism cycled 5 rounds from an internal magazine, accurate to over 600 yards in trained hands, accurate to over 6 yards. Springfield Armory and Rock Island Arsenal had produced over 1 million M1903s by 1941, and the rifle equipped U.S. forces at Pearl Harbor, Bataan, and Guadalcanal. Soldiers who trained on it trusted it absolutely. Those who received the new Garand often requested the Springfield back. M1903A1, the M1903A1, approved in 1929, was mechanically identical to the original Springfield but featured a pistol grip stock for improved handling. Production remained limited, and most examples went to the Marine Corps rather than the Army. It saw early Pacific combat in 1942, particularly among units that had not yet transitioned to the M1 Garand. The A1 variant is often overlooked, but it bridged 2 generations of American infantry doctrine. M1903A3 entered production in 1942 as a simplified, faster-to-manufacture version of the original Springfield. Remington Arms and Smith Corona produced over 1.1 million A3s, replacing machined components with stampings to accelerate wartime output. Its aperture rear sight, moved rearward to the receiver, was actually more accurate than the original's barrel-mounted sight. The A3 became the dominant boat action in Army service after 1943, especially in training commands and replacement depots. M1903A4, the M1903, especially in training commands and replacement depot. Introduced in 1943 was the RD4 Fest Tabiaft. It mounted a Weaver 330C or Men73B1 telescopic sight and eliminated the iron sights entirely, making it purely a precision weapon. Snipers carried it in the Italian campaign and at Anzio, where long engagement distances rewarded its accuracy. Over 28,000 were manufactured, a small number, but each one placed in a trained hand that could engage targets beyond 1,000 yards. American doctrine recognized that not every soldier needed a full-length battle rifle. These compact weapons armed rear-assailant troops, tankers, airborne soldiers, and officers. M1 Carbine. The M1 Carbine, adopted in October 1941, fired a proprietary .30 carbine pistol-length cartridge from a 15-round detachable box magazine. Weighing just 5.5 pounds unloaded, it was nearly half the weight of the M1 Garand. Winchester, IBM, Inland Division, and 8 other manufacturers produced over 6 million M1 carbines, making it the most produced American firearm of the entire war. Paratroopers, medics, artillerymen, and support troops embraced it as an enormous upgrade over the pistols it replaced. M1A1 Carbine. The M1A1 Carbine, introduced in 1942, was a purpose-built airborne variant featuring a folding wire stock designed by Inland Manufacturing. It could be carried compactly in parachute equipment bags during jumps over Sicily, Normandy, and Holland. Once on the ground, soldiers unfolded the stock in seconds for a ready weapon. Over 140,000 M1A1s were produced, and the design became one of the most iconic images of American paratroopers in the European theater. M2 Carbine. The M2 Carbine arrived late in the war, approved in October 1944, adding selective fire capability to the standard M1 platform. A selector switch allowed soldiers to fire fully automatic at a cyclic rate of 750 rounds per minute using a 30-round magazine. Very few M2s reached frontline units before the German surrender, but Pacific Theater troops used them in the Philippines and Okinawa. The M2 foreshadowed post-war assault rifle doctrine, proving that soldiers desired both automatic fire and compact size. Every American rifle squad depended on one automatic weapon to provide sustained suppressive fire. These were not machine guns, they were rifles. A single man could carry and run with. M1918 Browning Automatic Rifle, BA. The AR, the M1918 BAR, designed by John Browning and first fielded in 1918, fired .306 from a 20-round detachable magazine at 5.55 rounds per minute. It weighed 16 pounds loaded, a brutal burden but one that gave every rifle squad genuine automatic firepower. Men led assaults across North Africa, Italy, and northwestern Europe, often drawing enemy fire deliberately to expose enemy positions. The weapon's reputation was so formidable that German soldiers specifically targeted BAR gunners as priority kills. M1918C2 BAR, the M1982, the definitive World War IV variant, introduced a bipod, a pistol grip, and two selectable automatic rates of fire, slow at 300-450 rounds per minute and fast 500-650 th. It removed the semi-automatic setting entirely, reflecting doctrine that viewed the BAR purely as a squad support weapon. Winchester, New England Small Arms, and IBM manufactured over 188,000 A2s during the war. Every Army infantry squad was authorized one BAR, and veterans consistently ranked it among the most reliable weapons they carried. No weapon defines the American infantryman of World War II more completely than this one. It shocked allies, alarmed enemies, and permanently altered infantry combat. M1 Garand, the M1 Garand, adopted in 1936 and designed by Canadian-American inventor John Cantius Garand, was the world's first semi-automatic rifle issued as a standard infantry weapon. It fired .30-06 from an 8-round in-block clip, allowing a trained soldier to deliver accurate, semi-automatic fire at targets up to 500 yards. General George S.E.S. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised, and the statistics support that praise. The U.S. produced over 5.4 million M1 Garands during the war. Against bolt-action-equipped German and Japanese infantry, an American soldier could deliver 8 aimed shots in the time his opponent fired 2. M1C Garand, ZIT-Zermite, ZIT-Z, developed in 1944, was the Army's first semi-automatic sniper rifle, mounting a Griffin & Howe offset side-scope bracket and an M82 telescopic sight and an N89 bait mine toward its sack. The offset mount allowed the N-block clip to be loaded normally, solving a fundamental problem that had prevented earlier scope configurations. Production was limited to approximately 7,271 rifles, and most arrived too late for widespread use in Europe. However, the M1C validated the concept of a precision semi-automatic sniper platform, a concept that would dominate military sniping for the next 4 decades. M1D Garand, Sniper. The M1D appeared in 1944 as a simplified alternative to the M1C, using a simpler barrel-mounted scope base rather than the complex side bracket. It accepted an M84 telescopic sight and a flash hider, one of the first American service rifles to incorporate that feature. The M1D proved easier to manufacture and maintain than the M1C and became the Army's standard sniper Garand by late 1944. It remained in U.S. military service through the Korean War, a testament to the platform's underlying excellence. American doctrine sometimes assigned submachine guns to soldiers who needed close-range firepower over accuracy. These weapons blurred the boundary between pistol and rifle in the hands of frontline troops. Thompson M1928A1. The Thompson M1928A1 chambered in .45 ACP and feeding from 20 or 30 round stick magazines, entered Army service before Pearl Harbor as a premium close-quarters weapon. Weighing nearly 11 pounds unloaded, it was expensive, costing over $200 per unit in 1941, or roughly $4,000 in modern terms. Rangers, airborne troops, and NCOs carried it in North Africa and the Pacific, where its stopping power in jungle embus proved devastating. Over 562,000 M1928 were produced, though the Army actively sought cheaper alternatives from the moment the war began. Thompson M1 and M1A1, the Thompson M1, standardized in 1942, stripped the beloved but expensive M1928 122, stripped the beloved but expensive M1928 down to its essential components. It eliminated the cuts compensator, the adjustable rear sight, and the ability to accept drum magazines, reducing dollars to 40-45 DL. The M1A1 followed in 1942 with the fixed firing pin replacing the separate hammer, shaving one more component from the assembly line. Combined production of both variants exceeded 1.5 million units, and the simplified Thompsons equipped American infantrymen from Sicily to Berlin. M3 grease gun. The M3, adopted in December 1942, was the Army's answer to a blunt question: could America produce a functional .45 ACP submachine gun for under $20? Developed in just a few months by George Hyde and Frederick Sampson, it weighed 8.15 pounds, fired at 450 rounds per minute, and was made almost entirely from stamped steel and welded tubing. Soldiers nicknamed it the grease gun for its unmistakable resemblance to the mechanic's tool. Over 600,000 were produced, and tankers in particular valued it for its compact size and cramped vehicle interiors. A small number of rifles entered American service through unusual channels, issued to elite units, Allied forces, or in response to specific combat requirements. Johnson M1941. The Johnson M1941, designed by Marine Reserve Officer Melvin Johnson, was a semi-automatic rifle chambered in .306 that competed directly against the M1 Garand for the Army's adoption contract, and lost. Despite losing the contract, the Johnson was purchased in limited quantities from Marine Raider and Paramarines units, OSS operatives, and the 1st Special Service Force. It fed from a rotary 10-round magazine and could be topped off with standard 5-round M1903 stripper clips in the field. Approximately 30,000 were built, and soldiers who carried one swore it was the most reliable rifle they ever fired. Rising M50 and M55. The Rising submachine gun, chambered in .45 ACP, reached Marine Corps hands in 1941 as a stopgap weapon during acute shortages. The M50 used a 20-round box magazine and proved accurate for a submachine gun, but catastrophically unreliable in the mud and sand of Guadalcanal. The M55 folding stock variant was designed for paratroopers but saw minimal use. Over 100,000 Risings were produced, but most were withdrawn from frontline service by 1943 after their mechanical fragility became undeniable in the Pacific. The rifles carried by U.S. Army soldiers in World War II represent one of the most diverse and consequential small arms programs in military history. No single weapon defined American infantry firepower. Instead, a layered system of bolt-action precision, semi-automatic volume, compact carbines, and automatic support gave American soldiers a tactical flexibility their adversaries rarely matched. This video covered 17 distinct rifles and rifle roll weapons, from the century-old Springfield lineage to the revolutionary Garand that permanently ended the era of the bolt-action battle rifle. The legacy of these weapons did not end in 1945. The M1 Garand fathered the M14. The carbine concept produced the M16 family. Every rifle in an American soldier's hands today traces its doctrine, if not its steel, back to the mud and fire of the Second World War.